like that. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
How's everybody doing tonight? We're all good? Good to see all your faces or your photos, whichever one. Good to see you all. Very good to see you all. If you have had a chance to look at your email, then you saw that you got the homework, the compilation. And I think it was like 170 pages long, or maybe 26.
It was long. It was long.
It was long, but I thought that it was long and beautiful. It goes to show that, you know, people were really thinking this through in ways that were meaningful. It wasn't just a haphazard, just send out a couple of quick bullets, whatever comes top of mind. People put a lot of effort into it and really sometimes delineated like different areas of their lives. And I even had a few people that sent like part 2 or part 3, or when I woke up this morning, I thought of this and I want to add that on. And that was kind of nice. After we sent them out, I received some more also. So we'll send you part 2 of the compilation between now and Thursday. It wasn't worth sending it out today. You had more than enough to look at, more than enough to peruse. And of course, you don't have to read everything. It's just an option for you, that if you want to look at where other people's thoughts are, it can help to trigger you, or fine-tuning yours, or adding things to yours, or even just helping you to remember areas of thought or areas of your life that you might have overlooked when you were putting your own together. And one thing that's really important is that from 2020 on, that focus of what do I value is going to become increasingly important. It's going to become increasingly significant. I have probably a little bit of a better understanding of some of the things that are to come energetically than maybe a lot of people do, simply because I've been getting previews of it for, I'm going to say solidly for 8 years, but you know, definitely with a lot more emphasis for the last 5 years, and unequivocally for the last 2 to 3 years. So I have always had a sense. I don't know that I expected that, you know, boom, 2020 was here and all of what I was suggesting or getting from guides would like be delivered on our doorstep virtually with our New Year celebration. But that's what happened. And that helps us to trust the things that I bring in for the future. Okay. And I find that it's worthy to trust the things I bring in for the future, because no matter what we hear as perspectives, the perspective that I get is always the one that is the most optimistic. It always seems to be the one that's the most aligned with soulfulness. There's a lot of people out there that are saying things and predicting things, but they oftentimes have they're fear-based, or they're capitalizing on the fact that there is so much unknown right now. They're capitalizing on that to either draw in an audience, draw in money, draw in interest, draw in addiction, draw in followers, or anything. Stay connected, whether it's through me or through it's anybody else. Stay connected to what is resonating with you as being soulful. Choosing to focus on things that are soulful is your choice. If you go down that rabbit hole and you pay attention a lot to things that are not soulful, that is also your choice. Okay? It's always a choice. It's always a choice. One thing from the beginning of when this virus became known, you know, many people have asked me, what is the timeline? And the timeline that I got was, it's been relatively constant, that people would kind of tire of this whole thing by the end of April. People would be eager to get back into the flow. And by mid-May, we would be back in the flow. But then there would be people who resisted, and then there would be people who were full on board. And it is kind of playing out like that. Now I can see that it might be extended, the timeline, but the reason I'm making this point is it's that we have to remember we're creating reality. It's not just us, but it's everybody. So if you have the advantage of having a mass audience by having millions and millions of viewers watch you every day or read something you're saying every single day, and people are following, even because it's jolting something inside of them that feels familiar, like something ugh, or something scary, or something out of control, or something to create anxiety. If they're drawn to it and they're feeding themselves that, a diet of that every day, day in and day out, and day in and day out, then the vibration of the people who are watching this have more input into the energy that's creating our tomorrow collectively. So it's not that we don't have influence, it's that we want to be ever more mindful of what our influence is. So even though we are living soulfully, so our influence is more positive simply because we are living more soulfully, it doesn't mean that the accidental energy that we're putting out there is enough from 2020 on. One thing we want to become aware of is to be more purposeful in our focus. Be more, I don't know what that thing is, but that's supposed to be an O. We want to be more purposeful in our focus. Right now, we're entering into a phase of physical manifestation that nobody has ever been involved in before. There's not a living person on the planet that knows now what comes next. They don't know what happens next for the virus, for the world globally, for the world of fashion or finance or food. Nobody knows. So just as we have created our reality individually and collectively before the virus, we're still going to create our reality individually and collectively after the virus. And one thing the world is going to be craving and looking for, it's going to crave people who have some confidence and maybe some insight and some optimism about steps to take as we move forward. So we, as a group, anyone who is living somewhat in a soulful, energetic space, we want to understand that it's really time to put more of our opinions out there or more of our leadership qualities out there, because there is no rule, there's no book, there's no manual. Nobody has a book that was handed post-corona and it came downloaded and we're all going to get a copy. Nobody has that. So we have to write it as we go along. So rather than have anybody write your book for you, or anyone write the book for the United States, or anyone write the book for the entire globe, why don't you participate in writing it? So being purposeful means that you take your energy, and you take your energy of what you think, the formula I use all the time, what you feel, what you believe, plus the actions that you take based on what you think, feel, and believe, that formula, now you want to use that in a more mindful, purposeful way. Let this be your focus. Don't sit around and wait to see how people decide things. Don't sit around and wait, especially if you have any leadership role at all. If you own a business, if you are the spiritual leader of your family or your community or any group that you belong to, be the one that can say, you know, it's okay. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And step up to create how you want to live. I'm going to imagine that most of us on this call, we don't want to have the next decade of our lives being with wearing masks and not being allowed to hug and not having businesses thrive by operating at capacity, by not having restaurants full and even planes full. I don't think we want to live where that becomes the story of our entire future. Most of us are probably eager to get back to the freedom of choice, which is a choice if I go to a crowded restaurant or not, if I take a plane that's sold out and fly somewhere, or I don't, if I do this or I don't. What we're looking for is choice. And in order to have choice in moving forward, we want to be more verbal about what we want our choice in. If we leave this up to the world to decide what the next chapter of 2020 looks like, then those who are commanding the largest audience, even if they are amassing those audiences through fear, they're going to be the ones that create your collective reality. And I don't really think that that's what you're going to want. So the reason we spent the last class on what do I value and why you put so much effort into it is because now that you have a better understanding of what matters to you, it's ever more important that you put your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and your subsequent actions into what you value. When I started all of this, and I, started to do it outwardly in 2007, there was really no one that I knew of that was doing what I do. No one. A few people started to tell me about Esther Hicks, so I recognize that she has the role that's the most similar to what it is that I do, which is to get downloads and to give people information of value, information that has been shown historically over and over and over again to be accurate, to be wise, to be true. If we don't ignite it and tap into it in this year or this decade or this century, it's going to come back out through another voice or another million voices in 100 years. This is where we've been heading since humanity developed the process of having language even. It might seem like it's a really long journey, but now we're at this precipice. We're at the precipice of being able to really effect change in a positive and far-reaching way. So even though there was no one out there really doing what I was doing in the beginning, I stuck with it because it resonated. And then in that last decade or so, every single thing that was told to us by guides has turned out to be true. There was nothing that they said that hasn't turned out to be true. So that gives us the faith to understand that we're powerful. If you find this information interesting and it resonates with you, and you can see that everything that has been said over the last decade has turned out to be true, then you can have faith in your intuition that brought you to this information. And that means that you are attuned to the same river of universal wisdom that I am attuned to. So let's think about being purposeful. When you look at the list of what you value, it's important that you take more steps, even if you think nobody is noticing. You take more steps to support with your energy that which you value. And you start to live a life where not taking action that supports that which you value just becomes the old way of being, and you almost can't remember that anymore. And I thought of like an example. So we don't buy water bottles, and I haven't really let us buy water bottles in this house long before anyone was starting to send photographs around of how many water bottles people are consuming and tossing a day and what that numbers look like in a visual. So we stopped it. The only time I ever do is for an event. And then I ask people to, take or recycle or reuse their bottles and all that. And now we've even gone to containers of water, preferably every time that we can. But there are occasions when someone brings a water bottle into my house and then it's there, one of those disposable ones. So what I've done over the I just do it because it feels natural now. So what I have done is I take those water bottles, and anytime I repaint a room, I take the spare paint and I put it in one of those water bottles and I seal the lid because they're actually a really good storage container for paint. And I label it, and then I take that bottle of paint and I put it in the room that I painted. So anytime, someone scratches something up or the doorknob nicks the back of the door, I always have a bottle of paint in that room that's stored in a water bottle, right? So one day if I sell the house, the next owner has a water bottle fill of that room paint if they decide to choose to keep that paint. So it's just like little ways of, now I've reused and reused and repurposed those 9 or 10 bottles that are all over my house. It's a mindset of thinking. And I became diligent about this long before I started to recognize a crisis that we're having right now, is that other countries that have without limit taken our plastic recycling, they're balking now. They're not interested in the United States' plastic recycling. So you can peel your labels, you can sort your recycling, you can put it out once a week in a certain can, but it doesn't really have anywhere to go. It might have a little place to go today because we're still in that transition, but ultimately, within a heartbeat, it's going to have nowhere to go. So that means we have to start to think, what do I value? Do I value a momentary use of a one-time use piece of plastic that's going to be in a landfill forever? Or do I value rethinking this, even if it's not that convenient? It might not be that convenient to use glass or to use a reusable bottle or to purchase things that use less packaging. It might not be convenient, but why not get ahead of the curve, because we're going to all have to do it anyway. If we continue the way we're living right now, we're going to be putting our garbage out in ripped up sheets that are tied together at the curbside, and you're going to get fined if there's even so much as a drip of plastic in it. Ultimately, to save the planet, that's where we're going to go if we don't start to think about what we value and think about what actions we want to take. Okay, so if I'm one person and I'm putting in as little water bottles into recycling as possible, what good does that do for the planet? I don't really know, but the vibration of what I create in that, if 2 more people do it, and then 2 people, and then 2 people, and so on and so on, if everybody does that, what happens is the demand for the water bottles gets cut off. If no more people are buying bottled water as the demand gets cut off, that means that there'll be nothing to fight. There's nothing to worry about. The idea here is when we're taking actions, take actions that are in the vibration of the world that you want to live in. Thinking about what you value. What do you value? What do you value? I'm going to talk about another aspect of what I value. When in those first 2 years, when I was talking to guides and I was reframing a very difficult childhood and trying to understand all the dominoes of how I became the adult that I was at the time, I was peeling off a lot of masks and layers, and I was understanding soulfulness again. I was visiting the energy realm. I was understanding this whole illusion of being human. I was vibrating higher. I was getting closer to the vibration of love. As I was doing all that, one of the things that I found, now I'm going to say all this because I trust everyone here has a high enough level of awareness to understand what I'm about to say. Okay? I'm going to say this, and I wouldn't say this maybe in a more public audience, but I'm going to say this to all of you because I understand that I have trust in your levels of awareness to appreciate what I'm about to say. So one of the things that I started to I felt a real pushback on was medical charities. Now that sounds cold, and that sounds like I'm lacking in compassion, but I just all of a sudden started to say, you know what? No, I'm not donating to that. I'm not donating to that. I'm not donating to that. So I just stopped having anything to do with any medical charities. And it was just like this natural emergence, and I couldn't figure it out because I care about people being healthy, and I certainly want anyone that has a chronic illness to be able to find a cure and move forward with a cure and have the research necessary to create that. So I couldn't understand why this pushback on medical charities, seemed incongruent with becoming more soulful. And then so what I would do was, over time, if I had this dichotomy in my actions and my thoughts with what I thought I was learning from the guides, I would certainly have the sensibility at some point to ask them, like, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? Why am I getting pushback on this? And what was explained to me is that in the book, The Answers, that I channeled, one of the statements is that the purpose of life is to love, to create, and to learn. In that order, there are no exceptions. When I got that sentence, I remember that the soul that was channeling that through me, she said, the purpose of life is, and I felt this big ... like this pregnant pause. And I'd been channeling and channeling and channeling. And all of a sudden, I felt like there's no way I'm getting the rest of this sentence, because I didn't feel big enough to get the rest of the sentence. I didn't feel important or special enough to get the rest of that sentence. Anything she'd written in that book so far, or any other soul had written in that book, really resonated me. And it was incredibly uplifting and soulful and powerful and usable information. So how can I, this little tiny, this little tiny grain of sand on earth, how could I finish that sentence, right? I wasn't finishing the sentence. I was listening to the sentence be finished. So she waited, and she didn't finish the sentence that day, so I could have more confidence in myself. The next day, I channeled again the book. And she said, the purpose of life, she's just started right out and threw it at me, so I couldn't interject my own insecurity or lack of self-confidence to truncate the rest of that sentence. And she threw it in, and she quickly said, the purpose of life is to love, to create, and to learn. In that order, there are no exceptions. So I had it all down on paper, and then I was like, what? I got it. What is it? What does that mean? Tell me. And then I started to really look at this. And over that, I got that sentence in 2005. Over the last 15 years, it proves itself over and over and over again to be true. The purpose of life is to love. It's to grow in our ability to give and to receive love. The purpose of life is to create. The purpose of life is to create. And the purpose of life is to learn. Even when I got the sentence, I personally, and everyone knows this, I like the word discover. I don't use the word learn, because we as humans have kind of associated learning with, you got to learn your lesson and you're inadequate if you haven't learned it. So I use the word discover. So the purpose of life is to love, to create, and to discover. Now, the purpose of life really is only to love. Creating and discovering are almost like subsets of the superset, but we pull them out in that sentence simply because humanity doesn't understand what love means enough to make that be a singular sentence that would help to have them have a more understanding of what the purpose of life is. So let's look at to create. To create is to begin, to expand, to express. It has everything to do with how physical manifestation of reality on this planet began. We are a projection of consciousness. Consciousness is souls that are thinking, feeling, believing, and taking actions based on what they think and feel and they believe. This whole illusion of physical life is simply created by our conscious projection. So every single thing in existence is creation. When we as humans move away from creating, we start to wither. We start to become followers. We start to become small. We start to need rules. We start to not know our own power. We don't expand. We don't explore. We don't trust. So you can see how powerful to create is. To discover simply means that while we are human, the way that we experience the world around us and the human journeys that we're experiencing when we're children is that people tell us stuff that's untrue. And they also hurt us or abuse us or neglect us. And then more people tell us things that are untrue. And so we forget what we knew before we were born. So we have to remember what we used to know. So discovering is not really learning, it's remembering what we used to know so that we continue our soul's growth, getting back to remembering how awesome and limitless we are as powerful souls in or out of a body. Okay? So when I started to ask the guides, like, why am I pushed back from medical charities right now? The reason was at the moment, because when we are separated from soulful wisdom, we experience disharmony. Period. I'm going to say that sentence again. When we are separated from soulful wisdom, we experience disharmony. I don't care how the disharmony shows itself. It could be by not having a meaningful, mutually beneficial romantic relationship if you would like one. It could be through scarcity, could be through losing a job, it could be by having your house flooded, it could be by breaking your elbow, it could be by having a chronic illness, it could be any disharmony whatsoever. So when we are discovering something, we are discovering it because the universe gave us a disharmony as a knock on the door to help us, incentivize us to remember something that we forgot. Does everyone understand that? So when I was giving or donating to a medical charity, I was actually focusing on the separation from soulfulness that had already happened. We were already in disharmony. So when I started to shift where I wanted to put my resources, I shifted toward, still not knowing why, but I shifted toward arts and music. And now, once I asked the guides, why did I shift from medical charity to arts and music? Because there are not enough people on this planet that understand the value of to create as the second part of the order. Solving a disharmony that existed, making a discovery from a harmony, from a disharmony that existed because we separated from our own soulful wisdom that we were born with. That's number 3. Number 2 is create. If we have more people getting back to creating, experiencing music, experiencing being one with ideas or finding solutions or being a leader of a team or coming up with a new way of looking at things or creating something different or a different way of doing it or a different way of cooking or reading or writing or being, parenting even. So if we are putting our energy to creating, we are expanding, we are growing. We become more confident, therefore we grow back the self-love that we may have lost because we've been experiencing the disconnected already adult community that has raised us. So I didn't understand this process until I talked to the guides. And I recognized that me pulling my resources away from here and to here, it's not going to make people sicker or make them die, but what it's going to do is it's going to redirect the vibrational energy toward creating soulful choices that will make less room for body disharmony. If you're building, you're not sinking. If you're creating, you're not wallowing in self-pity. Do you see? They can't coexist. They can't coexist. The kernel within us wants to create. The kernel within us wants to explore. If that's tamped down, that's when we can become sick. That's when we think we're unworthy. We don't know our power. We don't know how wonderful life can be. That's when we become disharmonious. I brought this analogy up on a session today. So if you're the client that I had the session with, you're going to hear it again. But let's think about this for one split second or 2 or 5. I don't remember the year, but let's say about 5 years ago, there was this big public service campaign, a big one, to help people become aware of pancreatic cancer. Okay, so I'm sure you guys all remembered it. There were ads and pharmaceutical ads, and here's the symptoms, and it was like in our face all the time. Okay, at the time, the vast majority, and I think it was over 90% of all the people who got pancreatic cancer were male. So there was this idea that it was a men's disease. But in the public service announcements, they permeated people. So it started to sink in. So now we're aware of pancreatic cancer. Wouldn't you know it, that within 2 years of the public service campaign, women started to increasingly get pancreatic cancer, until the point that the numbers between the two started to shrink. Why? Is it that there's something in our environment that's causing more pancreatic cancer in women? No, it's because we are creating our reality by what we think, feel, and believe. And if I hit you over the head with something that says that this is going to happen to you or your loved one or the one next to you, if I hit you over the head with that enough, you're going to take it in on some level and you're going to tell it to your cells. So we create illness. We collectively create illness. I'm not saying I want to get sick. You're not saying you want to get sick. But what we're saying is we have created an entire existence of dis-ease. So now this virus is everything about fear, everything about we're all almost capable of killing each other through a simple hug, right? So what we're doing is we're trying on and wearing an extreme to help us see how it doesn't really make any sense, to help us see that that's not how we choose to live, to give people who have high soulful connections and they're tapping into universal wisdom, give them permission to be more verbal about what they believe about the mind and the body and the spirit connection, to demonstrate and model what living in love looks like, to live in harmony and see how that comes about and is almost like an illness preventer. So I'm not judging anyone that supports or even dedicates their entire life to a medical charity. That's not my point. My point is, as I was in the energy realm, I became less interested. Then as a human, I asked my guides, why am I less interested? And they interpreted it from this very high, universally true perspective so that I could understand life and how it unfolds. So now when I think about what I value, I know that I value putting my money, my time, and my love and any resource I have toward increasing humanity's ability to give and to receive love. It's the bottom line. This is my choice. To create one is my second runner-up. And the third one, to discover, it's the byproduct of being human. If you live and you breathe, your guides are going to knock on your door with an opportunity to discover something that you have separated from that you knew when you were born. So this is where I put my time, my money, and my love right to the source of being kind, of living in honor of myself, of you, of others, of the animal kingdom, of the plant community, of existence, of ideas, of creativity, of expansion. I put my stuff here. I try to explain this to people in a way that you can take in. The more you live in column A, which is your column of first choice, right? The more you live in column A, the less time you have for column B. If you spend more energy and you spend more joy in this column and not in these columns over here, things that you don't value, then you will have less vibrational energy going into the creation of your life and the creation of humanity and the globe. So what I value is that list. The list you guys created, they're packed with love. They're packed with living in honor. They're packed with possibility. They're packed with good things. They're packed with joyfulness. They're packed with possibility. Now, if you were to, post-corona, put your energy toward what you value, and every single one of you were to do it, would or would not we influence post-corona reality? I want to look at your faces. Would we? Let me see some nods. Or yes, we would. So today, let's say I want to be a part of that equation. I don't want some news channel that has an agenda and makes money by promoting that agenda. I don't want them being the ones that create post-corona reality for me or for our globe. So I better get in there with my high vibration, because for darn sure, my vibration, your vibration, every single person's vibration here is higher than the vibrations of the people that have created that news channel. So if our vibration is higher, we might not have the same audience, but we certainly have more influence, because our rays extend farther. When you're higher vibe, your rays from your sun, it extends farther. So we want to use those for good by being even more mindful of using our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, and our actions, and putting it toward what we value, what we value. There's a few things you guys know still kind of irk me, even though I'm like so evolved, but there's a few things, there's a few things that irk me. So obviously I'm not nearly as evolved as I would, want to be, but whatever. These things irk me. But one thing that irks me is when people who are doing something that's contributing to the world becoming more soulful, that they think that the best way to do this is to offer it for free. Okay? The reason it irks me is because if we continue to live in this idea that if you have something that other people can benefit from and they have less of it, you have to give it away because it makes you a better person, or for some reason it makes like this God man say, come on into my kingdom of heaven. Whatever it is that makes us think we have to give it for free. It's really moving away from the idea that we create reality collectively. If it's true that we should give away something simply because it makes life better, or simply because it's a soulful thing to do, would you ever get a bill at the end of the day if you went to a doctor and they were able to alleviate your symptoms? No. Would you? No, of course not. If you go to a chiropractor, would you get a bill at the end of it? If you went to a massage therapist and it helped to remove your stress, should you have to pay for that massage? The answer is no. But for some reason, there's a school of thought that if you're doing something like offer yoga or meditation classes, or you're doing Reiki, that you should donate all of this for free because you're giving something of value to others who don't have it. It's simply not true. A better perspective, or a way that we could continue to put our money and our resources and our time and our love toward what we value, would be to ask people to put their money and time and love and resources toward what they value, which is harmony with their mind and their body and their spirit, right? Isn't it amazing that somebody could go to a doctor and not be reharmonized and spend thousands of dollars and not bat an eye at it, but then balk when someone is offering them Reiki and they want a $75 donation? If that Reiki is the thing that reharmonizes them, put your money to what you value and take the rest of that $1,000 that you spent and go on a vacation. Now you feel good and you're going on vacation, right? It's shifting what we think about. I have, it's my preference. For some people, this is very entertaining, but I have an aversion to casinos and gambling. I don't like Atlantic City, and I don't like Las Vegas, right? I don't like it. They don't attract me. They don't turn me on. They don't make me feel good. So for me, because I don't value that, I put my money toward things that are more spiritual. I put my time to being in nature, to guiding people, to communicating with guides, to creating and being creative. That's my choice. But the idea is you want to figure out what you value. Just because so many people on the planet value spending billions of dollars in Las Vegas, it doesn't mean that that's the best way for us all to spend our money and our time and our love, right? What if we were to continue to show how you could feel better than the short-term rush you would get from a win at a casino simply by taking steps that bring harmony and bring out the mind and the body connectedness and balance by consistently doing things that allow us to be there. When we put our effort toward what we value like that and we live in harmony, the chaos of the world melts away. It just disappears. Ultimately, if we all did this, we would have no war, we'd have no greed, we'd have no disharmony, we would have no disease. Because when everybody is living in accordance with what they really value, and when they're living in connection to that vibration of love and the intention of being soulful and living more soulfully, all of that other stuff disappears. It melts. It melts. I just want to, there's been a lot of questions in the chat room. I'm going to take a quick break and, wow, I might not, wow, there's a lot. Okay. I'm trying to find a question that I can answer for the benefit of like everybody here. And yeah, here's one: is the reason that children are now becoming susceptible to the coronavirus is because they've been inundated with the, yes, absolutely. It's a progression we could almost plan or plot, that even though we said that the population that was vulnerable in the beginning was people that were over 70 or even over 80, or people with compromised immune systems, the reason that this is expanded is simply because we're telling ourselves to be sick. We're telling ourselves that we are victims. We're telling ourselves that if you hug someone, you can die. We're telling people that kindness causes death. Basically, that's what we've been doing. So as more people are, not that kindness, but you know what I mean, just that whole overriding thing that we can't be near or with anyone, and that everybody is going to cause our imminent death. The reason that now kids are able to be more susceptible is simply because of that collective conversation. You know, one of the interesting things is that even with what I was talking about with pancreatic cancer, the campaign, and then when the statistics showed themselves to change so improbably, the timeline was significantly longer than going from this is a disease that will primarily only be potentially life-threatening to those over 80 to where we are today, where it's such a mixed bag. The timeline has shortened, and I expected the timeline to shorten, because when you are in a period of accelerated enlightenment as we are, something that we did in 2009 is going to take 2 years to have a result. Something that we put in the waters of humanity in 2014 is going to take a year. Something that we put in the waters of 2018, now it was months. Now we're in 2020. We're going to have almost instantaneous manifestation of the suggestions and the placebos that we put out into the waters of humanity. Yes, that's exactly right. It's a good point. All right, there's a lot of questions here. I'm just trying to see if there's anything relevant to everyone here. Yeah, someone has the same reaction to Vegas, like a visceral reaction. I definitely had a visceral reaction when I landed there. Okay, so let's go back to tying this all together for today, and I'll give you a new homework assignment. The reason we wrote out what we value and we put such effort into it is because moving forward, post-corona is we will create post-corona life. Post-corona life is going to go in any direction. It's up for grabs. It's really up for grabs. It's amazingly up for grabs. So how purposeful we are in putting our money, our time, our focus, our love, our energy, our wisdom, whatever energy at all we decide we want to spend, whatever resources we have, when we want to use our resources, the more we put those resources to what we value, the more we are in the driver's seat of post-corona reality. Don't hand it off to anyone else. This is our turn. People who are awake, people who are living more soulfully, people who understand how reality is created, people who understand all of the things that we've been talking about for the last 10 years. It's our turn. Don't let other people be the decider for you. I guarantee if you leave this up to the government and you leave it up to the news channels, they're not going to create the world in which you want to live. Are they? That one I have to look at everybody. All right, I saw some nodding heads. All right, they are not going to do it. They don't have an agenda except for power and money. Power and money. Anyone whose entirety of their agenda is power or money are never going to be aligned with the world in which you want to live. Because operating only from a need for money or power is living completely egoically. And the ego never has the collective's best interest in their agenda. The ego never has the collective's agenda as their agenda. Never. Your best interest as a part of humanity will never, ever be their agenda. Do we got that? You know, here's one of the ways how you could see this, to show you how simple and clear this is, okay? So, some guy says, all right, here's the rules for the state. Then some guy says, here's the rules for the county. Then some person says, here's the rules for the town. And then some person says, here's the rules for this little store. When it gets passed from ego to ego to ego to ego, what does that person in the store act like? Are they friendly? Are they kind? Or are they miserable? Do they act like they know everything and you have to listen to everything that they say and they have all the authority and you do it my way or not at all? They get all of a sudden high with power because they felt inadequate or they felt small before. So now all of a sudden we gave them permission to have authority over other people when previously they thought they were invisible. When people get a taste of that egoic power, you know what they're going to want to do? They're going to want to hold on to it. They're going to want to hold on to it. So we have to say, no, that's not how I want to live. We don't want to give our power away to others to make decisions for us, period. So we want to get out there and focus on what we value. Focus on it with our money, our time, our focus, paying attention to it. Love is everything. It's this whole entire column. Our energy just means your strength, your whatever you got going, whatever gets you excited, it is all energy and it is all love. Your wisdom, your experience, your creativity, your spark of good ideas, your brawn, your grunt, your effort. all of these are energies. Let's put them to what we value. Okay. We don't know how things are going to play out. What's going to disappear on this planet? What's going to have longevity? What's going to spring back? What's going to choke and eke and then finally die off? We don't really know yet. We can predict some of it. But if you start really activating, putting your money, your time, your focus, your love, your energy, and your wisdom toward what you value, we will help to keep the organizations that are soulful alive and thriving. It's our choice now. Helen said, not everyone is like that. Oh, I absolutely know it. I was saying, if you send it from an egoic person to an egoic person to an egoic person to an egoic person. That's why I said the word ego in there. It's not all people. What I'm saying is when an egoic person gets power, they will become quickly addicted to needing more power because they don't have the soulful agenda of your best interests in their hearts. Okay? I've come across tons of people now out in public who are employed rather than people who are shopping or doing this or doing that. They're so gracious and friendly and warm and helpful and compassionate and eager. It's actually such a beautiful thing to see. And every now and then you witness this person. It's like, you know, I went into a store and I didn't see that there was no line, right? So I didn't see that there was this like long zigzaggy line you're supposed to stand in before you're allowed in. And so I just went in and I'm in. And so somebody's like, no, come back here. You have to go stand on the line. And I'm like, there is no line, right? But it was just so funny to see that this person has a set of rules. This person is going to execute the set of rules. This person is now visible and feeling significant. So this person is going to make me wiggle my way through an empty line just to walk into exactly where I came out of to go wiggle in through that empty line. That's what I'm talking about, right? So I wasn't unkind at all. And this might sound like this was really mean. Maybe I should have just wiggled through the line. But I felt like an energetic thing to do was to just say, you know, oh, I'm good. Like pretend I had no idea what she was asking because it didn't make any sense at all. And that was my way of saying, I'm not going to follow a rule for no rule's sake. There was no benefit whatsoever to any person on the planet for me to go back out, go and wiggle through the zigzaggy empty line just to walk into where I came out of. So it's taking back my power in a small way without being offensive or mean or unkind. Let me read this sentence. Yeah. I totally agree. There are tons of people out there. What we want to watch for is those who become very exact or militaristic in the execution of what they think is a new set of rules. Okay. What happened to humanity is that when egoic people had power and when egoic people have power, and it doesn't matter what level they're at, it doesn't matter if they are running a foundation or they're running a country or they're running a network or they're running a library, whatever level they are, if they are egoic, they're going to make rules that they want other people to follow. And very rarely will anyone revisit the rules and take some rules away, but they will always add more rules. And then they will promptly police those rules, because that's what egoic people do. They police rules. They make rules and they police rules. When you live in a highly ruled society, a highly legislated and governed society, society itself loses its ability to trust its inner instincts, to trust its inner compass, to be able to be good decision makers. When you take away people's right to decide for themselves, that's when people become chaotic. The reason that police are needed is because we have taken away their right to decide for themselves what is worthy, what is good, what is how I want to behave, right? And then the more you police, the more police you need, because now more people are dependent on this as the model for the choices that it is that they make. Someone I was talking to today, and she knows who she is. The numbers of tickets has dropped dramatically from this much down to nothing, right? And so what we recognized is that the police aren't running out there giving tickets all over the place, but yet everything seems to be going pretty good now, doesn't it? You know, people aren't driving 100 miles an hour on the highways. People aren't looting. People aren't doing things that we're policing so hard against. So when you let people make their own choices, when you let people do what they want to do, they do okay. We don't actually have to over legislate them. All right, so to get back to this. So we have our list of what we value. You now know you're in the power seat of collectively creating post-corona reality for yourself and with others. And now you get to choose. Okay, now you get to choose. So I'm not saying that you have to be out there and doing really big and grand things. I'm not saying that you have to quit your job if you're working and go out and start something where you're going to really figure out how to bring equality to a certain population, or you're going to bring harmony to an area that is struggling with poverty. Whatever it is that you're doing, you guys are not saying completely change your life. Take everything you've got, leave everything that you created or built, and put it all toward the thing you value the most. But getting back to my paint bottles, one paint bottle in every room, if everyone did one thing, if everyone did two things, if everyone did 7 things, if everyone lived their life doing things, their small day-to-day stuff in harmony and parallel with what they value, would the world become a better place? Yes. If everyone does that, the world becomes a better place. If everyone does that, the world becomes a better place. If everyone does that, the world becomes a better place, period. And when we move out into the world again, people will be craving kindness. They'll be craving positive interactions. They'll be craving points of light showing them the way when the script has been ripped up and burned and they have no idea what comes next. They will be craving wisdom. They will be craving the confidence that comes with soulful behavior. So you get to choose to be one of those people. You get to choose where you put your money, your time, your focus, your love, your energy, and your wisdom. So your homework assignment now is, what are the little things that I can do to shift on a consistent basis to, I know this sounds so corny, but what can I do to make the world a better place post-corona? Okay, so think of, how do you spend your money? How do you spend your time? How do you spend your focus? How do you spend your love, your energy, your wisdom? And once again, getting back to the paint bottles, it doesn't have to leave your house. It doesn't have to leave your immediate level of influence. It can be tiny things. I'm going to purchase this product instead of that because there's less packaging. I'm going to purchase this instead of that because this is packaged in cardboard instead of plastic. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whatever it is, what can you do? And if you want to, what can I do in a bigger way? What would I be happy to do in a bigger way? So we're going to write out what I can do, or what I want to do, or what I would like to do to make the world a better place based on what I value. How would I like to spend my energy, my love, my time, my money, my focus, my wisdom? What would I like to do? What can I do? What do I choose to do? Or what may I do to make the world a better place by putting my resources toward what I value? Okay, does everybody understand that? All right, somebody said that. Oh, by the way, I just want to say this is a public service announcement. If you have a Yahoo or an AOL address, we have a 50-50 chance of you getting any emails we send you. Okay, those are two email platforms that are not conducive for collective emails at all anymore. They don't function as well as some of the other email accounts do. So a lot of times people will contact me throughout the day with some of those email addresses and said, I haven't received this and I haven't received that and I haven't received that. So check spam. Do whatever you have to do on those platforms to let anything that comes in from my office get through to you. But those two particular email platforms, we honestly have a 50-50 chance of you getting our emails. And it's different every day. So there's no real rhyme or reason to it. So check emails there. Okay, and I'll address a lot more of this. But right now, we're just going to say, what are changes, little changes or big changes that I can want to make post-corona to make the world a better place based on what I value. When you put this in writing and you share it, you can see that we're taking the names out of everything. So there's anonymity. No one's going to call you up in a month and say, did you do that list? I saw you wrote on there that you were going to blah, blah, blah. Just checking in. I saw you on that class that night. Did you do it? It's not about accountability. This is about thinking it through. This is simply about thinking it through. And to remember, fundamentally, there's no, I have to, I'm going to say this and leave you with a kind of a funny thought to contemplate, but I say this once in a while and sometimes people will get caught up in it. But when you start to understand the truth of what I'm about to say, it kind of changes your version of how we create reality. But there's a sentence that I channeled a long time ago. Pretty interesting, right? Facts or fiction. So I'm going to let you just think about that, and we'll kick off the third class with this. And I'll explain to you why we're talking about in conjunction with creating post-corona reality. But facts are fiction, okay? Facts are fiction. All right, so I'm looking forward to seeing your homework, any homework assignments that I get of people's lists of what they value. I'll be sending out another batch before Thursday, and hope you're not upside down anymore. I'm really happy to see everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to, there were a lot of messages tonight, so I'm going to just make sure that before I sign off, I keep a copy of the transcript. So anything that I haven't answered tonight, and there were a ton of private messages, so I'll make sure that I take a peek at them. So anything in there is not going to get lost. So feel free to type things in there really quickly before we disconnect. And thanks for being here. I really look forward to seeing you again on Thursday. And especially, I have to tell you, because I didn't emphasize it enough, because I knew we had an agenda tonight, but I didn't emphasize it enough at the beginning, that I am so, so, so impressed and touched and appreciative of the list of what you value. When those letters came in, and I got a ton of them. When those letters came in, I have to tell you, I would open them and I would look at them, and I was so blown away by the care and the thought and the soulfulness and the energy that you guys put into that. To me, like, that reiterates every single thing I say about people who are beacons, the people who can create life for the future, that we don't want to live with the people who are not soulful, creating our next reality. That's why we're together. That's why we're stepping it up, because that's the people we want to put more energy out in there, right? That's what we want. That was really great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. So let me put it on view that I could see everybody before we say goodnight. Thanks, and I will see you all again on Thursday. Enjoy.